Hi, welcome back to my channel. I have been missing from this channel for so long. I'm sorry. I really been wanting to film videos, but I just haven't been, and I've been getting so many DMs from people telling me that I need to film more videos, and I really decided that I need to take this channel seriously because people actually really like it, and I just need to start filming more and more videos. So this video is going to be it's going to be all about student loan debt. And so right now we're going through the Democratic primaries, and there's so many people running. Everybody has different views, and one of the candidates is Bernie Sanders. And he obviously, if you guys don't really know what Bernie Sanders politics are, he's a very, very liberal and very progressive. So he really wants to see a lot of change and a lot of social change in America, starting, with Medicare for everyone being able to have access to health care. And another thing that he is really worried about is student loan debt. So I wanted to talk about this. I actually posted Bernie Sanders on my Instagram story and said I hope that he can get rid of all student loan debt, and people were DMing me, and I saw people saying like, well, if you're irresponsible enough to get yourself in so much student debt, then you are the one who needs to bear that. The American taxpayer doesn't need to bear that. And why not do it for something else, like people who can't afford their medical bills and stuff like that? Well, first of all, Bernie Sanders is for Medicare for all, just to make that clear. So that would mean that there will be a lower price of healthcare overall. And I'm sure that he is completely against. And we see someone who learned a lot from him, who's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is in Congress right now, who is holding the pharmaceutical companies, their lobbyists, and the candidates who ensure that laws are in place that actually benefit these pharmaceutical companies and allow them to get patents on drugs and then mark the price up to where the point that nobody can afford it. They are checking that. So that is something that's really important as well. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about student loan debt and my own experiences with student loan debt, and why we do need a bailout. Seems like this extreme idea, right? And there's other ideas from the other candidates, and I'll also get into that as well. But the bailout seems like this really crazy idea and really extreme, but there are justifications for this bailout of student loan debt that I think a lot of people don't realize and don't talk about. So let's bring it back to 2008. We had our 2008 recession, and there was a bailout of the banks. The banks were not able to keep themselves open. People were losing money. People's bank accounts were getting frozen. Lehman Brothers, I remember seeing these people outside of the bank, and their bank accounts were just frozen. They couldn't even access the money in their bank account, which is so crazy because the bank didn't have any money. So in comes the government. The government does a bailout. This is an estimated $700 billion to $3 trillion bailout that the government did. And some people even say it's more than that. It was more than that. And there was a lot of backlash on that bailout, but eventually it was done. Another bailout at that time of the recession was the auto industry. The auto industry in America was dying. GM was dying, and there was another bailout of these huge corporations, and I believe this is under Obama, that there was a huge bailout of these major, massive corporations, and honestly, they were just not handling their business right, and people were upset about it. People were like, they don't handle their business right. There's nothing that's too big to fail, quote unquote. That was the line back then. Like, the GM was too big to fail. It's too important to America for this company to close because they provide so many jobs and they do this and they do that. We had to bail them out. So now I'm seeing that, and also at that time we were going through the subprime mortgage loan crisis. So people were getting these loans that they really couldn't afford, and everyone was living in these lavish houses, but eventually the loans would creep up on them, and then the interest rates would increase so much that they couldn't afford to pay for the homes. There was no bailout of the individual American who was, duped basically by these banks into getting these loans. And even though I see where that comes from, it's like if you're stupid, if you know you make a certain amount of money per year, you know you don't pay your bills on time, why would you get like a $500,000 mansion? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? But at the same time, these banks really did persuade people into taking these loans that were extremely predatory, and that was a problem, and it really didn't get fixed. It didn't. So when we look at student loans, it's very similar to the subprime mortgage crisis, which actually I think it's a little bit more predatory. So I'm going to talk about me in my time in college. So when I started college, I was 18 years old. I went to a state school. I went to a commuter school. My first year of college was paid for with federal student loans. After that, my second, third, and fourth year of college was paid for cash. My second year of college was paid for by me and my parent, and then my third and fourth year of college was paid for by me, basically. And I had kind of a high-paying job for college students, so that's why I was able to pay cash to my college, which was a commuter school. I also lived at home my third and fourth year of college, so I lived with my parents. I did not live on campus. My first and second year, I lived on campus. My first year, I had a real college experience. I lived on campus. I had a meal plan. I had like 3 roommates. And that was my time, my first year of college. My second year of college, I lived at even a subsidiary campus of the main campus of my school. My school was already a commuter school. So I lived in the subsidiary campus. I had a 1-bedroom dorm, it was just me in there. I had a kitchen in my dorm. I didn't have a meal plan. I bought groceries and I cooked them, whatever. And then my third and fourth year, I lived at home with my parents to save money on housing. And then I started working a lot more, and I ended up paying, cash for college. My college cost about $1,300, like about $1,200 to $1,300 per month, and that was what I would pay for like 3 months of the semester. I'll pay on a payment plan, and I paid cash that way. I had got my bachelor's degree in business administration and specializing in marketing. Then I went to law school. So I went to law school. I went to a private law school. My law school cost about like $160,000 for 3 years. I was a part-time student, and I was in a 4-year program. I actually finished my 4-year program in 3 years. But I was a part-time student for my first 2 years, and then I switched to being a full-time student my 3rd year. The increase in tuition went up. I had a scholarship. My scholarship was about half of my tuition. So personally, that affected my choice a lot to go to a private law school, because I knew that I was going to be able to pay for it because I had half of it paid for with the scholarship. But I did take out loans. So my loan total is about $70,000 from law school. Now I'm going to talk about how people repay and stuff later on in this, but I want to talk about my senior year of high school whenever I got into college. So I remember getting into college when I was 17 years old, 2010. December 2010 is when I got my admittance letters to my college. And whenever I went back to school a few months after our senior year, and I turned 18 in March of my senior year. Now, I do not specifically remember if I signed up for FAFSA when I was 17 or 18 years old. But I'm going to say right now that there are many Americans who sign up for FAFSA student loans. FAFSA is a federal student loans. That's where you get your loan money from. Actually, it's financed through a bank, and then it goes to FAFSA, right? And then like you are signed up through FAFSA. So I'm going to say 100% fact. There are many 17-year-olds and even younger, because kids can go to college even younger than 17. But usually it is 17-year-old seniors, maybe 18-year-old seniors as well, who are applying for student loans. A contract with a minor is voidable. That means that a 17-year-old can enter into a contract and completely rescind it. My experience when I was in my senior year of high school was, so after I got into college, that's when the people started coming in and telling us to fill out our FAFSA forms. And I remember I filled it out with my parents. It was actually based on my parents' income and not mine. And at that time, I had no income. I didn't even have a part-time job in high school until I already turned 18. So like at the very end, basically the summertime was the first time I ever had a job in my life. So it was based on my parents' income. But at the same time, it's like you're asking minors to sign up for loans. For the first year of college, the loans can go up to like $10,000 for the first semester, like not including the whole time, because every semester you have to take out loans again and again. That's another problem, because each time you take out loans, unless you refinance them, they're going to be a separate interest a lot of the time. So it's like you have this loan, this loan, this loan, and this loan, and they're not all together. And like, or you have a loan from this provider, you have a loan from this provider, you have a loan from this provider, and they're not all together. So it's like you have interest on one loan, interest on one loan, interest on one loan. And I think that the problem really is that these candidates are trying to solve is that it has become a predatory practice. You're not only, college in itself is like, okay, you're forcing people to go, not forcing now, and that's the thing, nobody forces you to go to college, right? But for me, I'm going to speak for myself here, and I think that I also speak for a lot of other people when I say that college was what was told to me my whole life. Like that's one thing I knew for sure. When I turned 18, it's like time to go to college. It's like the same thing as when other people turn 14, they know they have to go to high school because high school's free in America. Like for me personally, growing up, it was like 18, you go to college. Everybody goes to college. My entire family went to college. Both my parents went to college. All my cousins went to college. I have 4 siblings. 3 out of 4 went to college. Like almost basically everyone I know went to college. And then the people who didn't go to college, it was always an example of like, oh look, their life ended up like this, and they don't have a job, and they have to do this, menial office job, or they have to do this other menial job, and they bag groceries, and those are the things that you're told is like you won't really have a life if you don't go to college. And I think a lot of people are told that. I personally was. Other people, they were never told that. They never went to college. They're successful entrepreneurs and they don't have to worry about student loans. That's fine. But for a lot of people in this country, actually, I think it says 40 million people. 40 million people are affected by student loans, and that's what's getting it up to so much debt. Right now, I think the average person in 2020 is going to be like $28,000 in student debt. And that is a lot of money. That's a lot of people who are taking out these loans. And that's what these candidates are trying to correct. A lot of people say, just shouldn't you be responsible if you have a liberal arts degree? The people with the most loans are people who have medical degrees, who have postgraduate degrees. So for example, I have a law degree. That's a postgraduate degree. If I had stopped going to school after college, after my 4 years bachelor's degree, I would have been in debt $3,500. In 3 short years, that became $70,000 for law school. So, and my law school classmates were more like $200,000 in debt because a lot of them went to private colleges. I went to a state college. A lot of them went to for-profit colleges and got their bachelor's degree from like a Kaiser University. That's a whole other thing. So a lot of the candidates are talking about this student loan forgiveness. Bernie Sanders wants to do total student loan forgiveness. Now, he hasn't really come out with a concrete plan of how he's going to do it, but he says, look, if we bailed out Wall Street, we could bail out student loans. Elizabeth Warren says that she wants to forgive up to $50,000 for people who make less than $100,000 a year. And then if you make between $150,000 to $250,000, then you get forgiven, but not the whole $50,000. And the people who graduate college and make $100,000 a year, that's usually like medical professionals, doctors and stuff, like maybe computer science, something like that. Some lawyers, like very, very few lawyers, actually are making that much out of law school, but people with bachelor's degrees generally aren't making that. And you don't have to have this like liberal arts degree. People always want to say that, but it's really like not even the truth. The truth is that anyone could have a bunch of student loans. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Bernie's plan for public colleges. So part of Bernie's plan for student debt forgiveness is public colleges, making all state schools in this country free. And I've seen that some people have some backlash to this, which is kind of stupid. They say that making college free will demean the integrity of a degree and make a degree less worthy and make college less important. And I think that it just proves the point that right now college is something that's really about wealth, and it's really about having rich parents. And even if you look at that college entrance scandal that happened with the with Aunt Becky and her kids, and that thing was kind of unfortunate because they paid $500,000 to get their daughter into a school where she didn't want to go to when she already had a thriving business. I think that having free college in America will educate people, but I don't really think it's necessary. And I saw some candidates, so Mayor Pete, if you guys have been following Mayor Pete, he's not really a front runner, but he's got a lot of press. He is the gay candidate, and he says that he would like to see an associate's degree be free. So everybody should be able to have an associate's degree. Kamala Harris, she talks about for-profit colleges and how she wants to cancel debt from all for-profit colleges. So for-profit colleges were like the Kaiser universities, whatever you see a commercial on TV, not the state schools, not a private college, but a for-profit college. So it's something that you would see the commercial on TV, and it's like, get your degree and whatever. And they really lie to people who apply there about what the degree is worth. It's pretty much non-transferable. The credits, you can't really transfer those credits anywhere. They don't apply to any college, and the degree is pretty much worthless. A lot of people who graduate from those type of degrees, they can't get into a graduate school, and they lie to people and say that that's not true, and then they get people to pay a huge amount of money to go to these schools and take out loans to do so. And of course, those loans have interest that are going up over time. So Kamala Harris says, let's get rid of those alone. Public college, it can't hurt or help, but college is just like a bubble that's bursting. So basically it's like going to college, it already has pretty much no meaning. Like a bachelor's degree pretty much right now has like little to no meaning in the work world. Like, unless, to me, it's like, unless you have 1400 or higher on the SAT and you're going to top tier Ivy League school, tier 1 school, you know, I know people, the best public college in Florida is the University of Florida. I know people who are in their late 20s and 30s who graduated from the University of Florida. They work retail jobs. They're like assistants. They graduated college with no experience, and the only people that are getting jobs, no matter what college you go to, are the people who go out there and hustle from day one, from the day that they turn 18, get themselves into the internships, get themselves into offices. And that's why I actually chose to go to college in a major city so I could work while going to college. And I went to work in offices, I went to work in different places. So, and it wasn't just about like, you know, getting a job at the mall for minimum wage. It was really about getting into the working world. It would have been better if I went to college in New York City or in LA or San Francisco, and I could have been in one of those major offices, because I went to college in South Florida. Miami is a major city, but it's not major city, and also I don't speak Spanish, and it's mostly like a Spanish speaking city. So that was my experience, and just seeing people, you know, graduate from really good colleges that they worked so hard to get into, basically to nothing, to something that they could have achieved without ever have going to college, and then they're in debt on top of it. Another thing with debt is that it does impede your ability to get other things in life. So if you have, and this was something I didn't understand either as a teen, and really up until like my mid-20s, I didn't really understand that there is no such thing as like good debt or bad debt. It's really how you either how much interest loans you're paying, or how you apply your debt to make yourself more money. And that happens a lot in the real estate world. You see people who are like in this immense debt, but like they own all these buildings, but like eventually it's gonna collapse, like if you're not making any money ever. And that's the same thing with student loans. So when you look at student loans, everyone tells you like, oh, it's okay like to take a student loan because you're getting in debt, but you're getting this degree out of it, so it's a good debt. Or your mortgage, and they're all consumer debt. So the number one form of consumer debt in this country is a mortgage. It's your house loan. And the second thing, and then that's another thing, house loans. People also say that's good debt and it's an investment. And honestly, a house will probably appreciate in value, but it might not. And usually the home that you live in, your personal home, is a liability more than it is an asset. It's not really an investment. It's not like an investment property, the home you live in. The second type of commercial debt, the second highest amount, is student loan debt. Now, when you take student loan debt, you are basically saying, I'm setting myself up in this career that I need this degree to have, and this career is going to exponentially outweigh my cost of my degree, right? And I mean, it's probably true. Like, okay, if you spend $70,000 on a law degree, you're probably going to be making at least like $70,000 a year. So really, you're going to be able to make it back. But then you think about like, okay, you make $70,000 a year. How much do you take home after taxes? And then you have other things to pay for. Like you have either your mortgage or your rent and whatever, and your car, and lawyer's gotta have a nice car. Your lawyer has to have a nice suit. So eventually you're gonna be spending so much more money that are you even really making $70,000 a year? Even if you're getting up into the 150 zone, it's really not about the school. But to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school. That's one of those things, like you have to do it. Unless you're in like California or one of these states that allow the apprenticeship, you basically have to go to law school. For a lot of other things, to be like a social media marketing manager, you don't have to go to college to do that. But like, will a job say that they prefer a bachelor's degree? Probably. Unless you know somebody, it's going to be difficult. I don't really know that a degree is really helping you more than knowing somebody. I don't think it is. So the thing is, when I took out my loans, I really thought that it was like a different type of debt, like it's a good debt. But no, it goes against you in the same way that anything else would. For me, and I said I was going to get back to repayment, and that's another part of it too, is repayment. So right now, there's multiple ways you can repay your debt. I think that the place where people are getting into a lot of trouble, really, I think it's the for-profit colleges and private colleges that are getting people into a lot of trouble with paying back debt because it costs so much to go there. Like, my top choice school was a private college, was Howard. I actually decided against it because I decided that going to a state school was going to be a lot more economical for me. And the connections I could have made at Howard were probably greater than at the school I went to, but I mean, not really. I don't know. The HBCU thing, it's like a dream, but like of mine, it was a dream of mine to do. But at the same time, I had to look and say like, I'm going to be cutting college prices in half if I go to school in my home state. And that's what I had to think about. So when people take out loans to go to private college, to go to their dream school, to move across the country and go to UCLA when they are from Georgia or something, like that's things that people want to do, but they don't really explain. Meaning your guidance counselors, your parents, the government. I mean, FAFSA, yes, it's in the contract, but they don't really explain like what you're really getting yourself into. And then when you graduate with $60,000, $80,000 of debt, it's gonna affect you in the same way when you're applying for a home loan, basically as if it were credit card debt. It's really affecting you in the same way. The only thing is the interest is probably a little bit lower, but it is a very high interest loan. 6.6% is high. It's a high interest loan. Most home loans are like 4%, like car loans are even like at 1% sometimes, and a student loan's at 6.6%. That's a high loan. So people don't really realize how much of interest the loan is actually taking on and what they are really owing. and those are the people who are affected the most, are really the people who go to the private colleges or out of state college, or for-profit colleges. Now, for me, I went to graduate school, meaning my loans are on an income-based repayment plan. So going to graduate school now, and all my loans are from graduate school basically. So I took out very minimal loans from undergrad, and pretty much all of my loans are from graduate school, meaning that I can't pay more than 10% of like my gross per year. So my income payment, like my minimum payment, is very low. So the good thing is that you can always pay more than your minimum, but if you're making your minimum payment, it's not going to affect your credit negatively. And my repayment, my monthly payment, is always going to be in proportion to what I make. So it might be low or it might be high, but it will always be in proportion to what I make. So it's not this like huge part of like my salary or how much money I'm making in a year. Unlike other loans where they can charge you kind of like whatever they want. And the third thing is that you can get student loan forgiveness. So we have in this country the forgiveness program. It already exists. It's not like a immediate forgiveness like what Bernie is saying, but it is forgiveness that is for people who work in public service for 10 years. There's different ways that you need to apply for this, and I think that 10 years ago when it's so I think it started in 2007. I'm pretty sure it's 2007 it started. So 2017 was the first time that they could roll out forgiveness. The first time they could do forgiveness was in 2017 of people who graduated college in 2007 and who have been working in public service. And all the people that applied, 99% of them were denied. Only 1% of the people actually were able to get forgiveness of their student loans. And there's different things that you have to do. So you have to make sure all your loans are direct loans. That has its own meaning. You have to make on-time payments every single month. So if you ever miss a month of payments, then you're out of loan forgiveness. And just off of that, like 99% of the people got rejected. Whoever applied for it. So they're saying that like hopefully in the future it won't be such a high rejection rate, obviously, but we don't know because there's people, things happen. You have a medical bill, you have something that's going on with your kid, you have something that's going on with your parent that you're helping out with, and all of a sudden you don't have enough money left to pay your loan that month, and then you miss a month, and that's what happens. And then for missing 1 month of payment, you could miss 1 month of a payment and you will not get this student loan forgiveness after working in public service for 10 years, which those jobs are extremely low paying. And nobody really talks about that, I think. So I think that as far as the politicians go with student loan forgiveness, I personally would like to see it 100% forgiven, because the entire system is extremely predatory and they prey on young people and minors. So that's why I think the whole thing should be completely forgiven. I also like Elizabeth Warren's plan, and she actually has a concrete plan as opposed to Bernie Sanders, who is saying that he wants it completely forgiven and he wants 100% free public colleges, but he hasn't really given a concrete plan, whereas Warren has given a concrete plan, and her plan is pretty good. Like, I would be okay with that. Get rid of $50,000 for people who make $100,000 or less. So my only problem is you could be making less than $100,000 this year, you might be making more next year, or you might be making more this year, you might be making less next year. That's where it gets a little tricky, but I don't know. I like both their plans. I do think that there is a problem with student loans in this country. It has become predatory. Colleges have gotten way too expensive to the point that nobody can afford to pay for it, and everybody has to take out loans, and the loans are at high interest rates. And I think that's a problem. I think that is a predatory issue between the banks and the schools, and it needs to be stopped. And one of our politicians is the ones who needs to stop it. So that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and you guys can check out all my links below to my website, to my Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well, all under the same name. So if you guys want to reach out to me, you could comment below, say what you think about student loans. Do you have them? Do you want it forgiven? Do you not care? Do you think we're all whiny babies and we should have been entrepreneurs when we were 11 years old? Okay, please comment below what you think about it, and I'll see you back here for my next video.